Breaking news into First Take this morning. After 15 years in the league, LaMarcus Aldridge announced he is retiring from the NBA, writing on social media that he played his last game on April 10th with an irregular heartbeat. Aldridge saying in a statement, quote, "Though I'm better now, when I felt my heart that night, I was still one of the scariest things I've experienced." I just want to add, he's been previously diagnosed with Wilf-Parkinson-White syndrome, and he's undergone multiple ablation procedures since the 06-07 season. He'll finish his career with 7 All-Star appearances. And gentlemen, obviously this is surprising news because he just joined the Nets and was looking to get a ring this season. Stephen A., your reaction to LaMarcus Aldridge retiring?
Well, certainly when I was critical of these guys not playing in games, particularly last night, I certainly had no idea of an irregular heartbeat. So God bless him and his family. I'm glad that he's safe. I'm glad that he's okay. And clearly he's making the right decision, because what he's saying is it's scared the living hell out of him in terms of, how his heart was pumping the other night. And it was, with the irregularity that obviously he's alluding to, it scared him so much that that's not something he wants to experience again. And you feeling that way, particularly as it pertains to the heart, they usually equate it with having a near-death experience. And so he talked about putting his family first now, as opposed to basketball, because he spent 15 years putting his basketball first. I remember his 2 years in Portland from 2013 to 2015. Obviously, he spent a lot more time than that there, but those 2 particular years when he was averaging 23 a game, he was big time and considered one of the key ingredients or one of the key guys out there that can make some things happen when he ultimately went to San Antonio. But the game has changed so much that obviously it's affected his potency, because it's a guard-oriented game. And Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and those boys has just changed the trajectory of the game. Things have changed. So, again, he's not what he used to be. We understand it, even though he could still play. He was a damn good player, and that's what we will remember him as. And he was a good guy as well. I mean, you didn't run across anybody that really had anything negative to say about him as a person. So you got to give credit where credit's due. Not that that matters, because sometimes people lie and things of that nature, and they excoriate folks that don't deserve to be excoriated. But in his case, you're not going to find anybody doing that. He was well respected and well liked throughout the league. So I'm just glad he's safe and sound. And he gets to go on with his life and look forward to his life after basketball. I'm just happy that he's okay.
Yeah, LaMarcus Aldridge, the main thing is that he's not putting himself in extra jeopardy, and that's good. He had an excellent career as an excellent player. Not just a 7-time All-Star, Stephen A. and Molly, 2-time All-NBA second team, 3-time All-NBA third team. That's 5 selections altogether. All-NBA first, second, or third team. And that's really quite excellent. And the only reason that I hesitate to say he was a great player is really not to do with him as much as it has to do with Stephen A., as you mentioned, the game changing during his career. LaMarcus Aldridge would have been even better in almost any other era. Even in this one, he was totally excellent, 7-time All-Star. But in any other one, he'd have been even better. And it's a shame that a guy who didn't get to win a championship was on a team where, if healthy, probably would have gotten his ring this year, but obviously has a serious condition that he needs to pay attention to. And as you said, Stephen A., wish the best to LaMarcus Aldridge and his family. And the good news is he made this decision instead of further jeopardizing his health. Good for him, and it was a tremendous career.
Yep, all the best to him and his family. And he said at the end of the statement, you never know when something is going to end, so make sure you enjoy it to the fullest. I think we've all learned that this year, and he certainly did. He had an incredible career. And putting health and family first seems to be the right decision, and he's just 35. He's got his whole life ahead of him. Fellas, we will take a quick commercial break. When we return on First Take, here's what I got for you. Oh, we are not going to take a commercial break. Actually, gentlemen, we're going to continue on here. And we got some quotes here from NBA legend Julius Erving, who didn't mince words on the Inside the Green Room podcast with Danny Green when discussing the current super team in Brooklyn. He said, quote, "It's reminiscent of how the Yankees used to do it all the time. They load up, they call it buying a championship. The Lakers are known for doing that too. They're getting all these pieces. They don't know at the the end of the season what it's going to look like or what it's going to feel like, but they're going to be formidable. You've got a team with 6 former All-Stars and 3 All-NBA guys who have been there and succeeded in the playoffs. Stephen A., are Dr. J's comments fair or foul?
I kind of think they're foul, believe it or not. I don't necessarily agree with that. Number one, if you're going to say something like that, say it when LeBron did it and he went to Miami. Say it when LeBron and AD joined last year. I didn't hear Dr. J saying that then. Number two, here's why I don't compare it to the Yankees. You see, when it comes to Harden, Max, or when it comes to Kyrie, or when it comes to KD, as you have stated on many occasions, Max, they're going to get their money. They're going to get their money no matter who you play for. The money was those exact dollars was coming. Kyrie was going to get that max $141 million. KD was going to get his max. James Harden turned down the additional 2 years and $103 million from Houston. Okay, but when you bring up the Yankees, took the liberty, Max, of going back into my archives because you ain't the only diehard Yankee fan. I remember back in the day in 1975 when the Yankees paid Catfish Hunter over $3 million. How about when they paid Reggie? How about when they played Reggie Jackson, Max Kellerman? That was in 1977. Now he was worth it because they won back-to-back World Series, and we know who Mr. October is. But they gave Reggie over $3 million.
Catfish was worth it too.
That's right, he was absolutely. How about when they gave Dave Winfield $23 million? Remember that? How about when they did that? How about Bernie Williams and his $87.5 million? How about Mike Mussina in 2021 when he got $88.5 million? Of course, Derek Jeter, I don't even count that because he was your guy. You groomed him. You didn't trade for him or anything like that. But Alex Rodriguez, $275 million. I mean, that you picked that up once he signed up with the Rangers and came over to you, and then you gave him an additional $300 million. Let's not forget all of that. And so I look at it from now. Actually, it was $250 from Texas, and then they signed him. They got him from there, and then ultimately re-upped him for $275 million. So you got that going on. You picked up Giancarlo Stanton's contract.
CC Sabathia got like $160, $180. Teixeira.
I think CC Sabathia. What did he get? Like 160-something million. All I'm trying to say is this: It's not the same. It's not the same because those guys that the Yankees got, you can make a legitimate argument they were going to be hard pressed to get those dollars elsewhere. You literally bought them, okay? You overpaid in some instances to get them to wear pinstripes and come to the Bronx because you're the Yankees and you were a cash cow and you could afford what most teams couldn't. That's not how it is in the NBA. KD chose to go to Brooklyn. Anywhere else he would have gone, they would have given him the exact max dollars that the Brooklyn Nets gave him. And so I look at it from that perspective, and I would say the great Dr. J. Julius Erving, who I love dearly, I don't think he's right on this particular equation in terms of comparing the two. I don't think there's a comparison there.
I mean, I was just looking at there's a bunch of contracts. First of all, Bernie Williams was also their own guy, and he could have gotten more money on the open market. He called Steinbrenner last minute and said, I don't want to be a Red Sox. I want to be a Yankee. Yeah. Let me say this about Dr. J's comments. First of all, they're fair. And second of all, I'd take it as a compliment if I was the Brooklyn Nets. Do you understand there's there's a cap in basketball. So everyone can spend the same, right? So how do you buy a championship? Your team has to be attractive enough that the superstars want to play there. You can't even say, well, they have New York because the Knicks have New York and they couldn't give away their money. No one would take it. So the Nets are doing something extra right to have this situation going on right now. That's a tip of the cap. It's not only fair for Dr. J to say it, it's an enormous compliment. By the way, it's a compliment to the Yankees too. They're not buying a second-round playoff exit. They're trying to buy a championship. You should be doing everything you can to get a championship. Dr. J didn't start out with the New York Nets. He started out with the Virginia Squires, right? and then he gets to the Nets, and then he gets he becomes eligible for the NBA and winds up with the Sixers. This is a business. But putting that aside, where major markets will use their resources to get great players, even if they have to spend a lot of money, that's not what the Nets did. The Nets have the same cap that the Pacers and that everyone else has. The Nets are in the same market as the Knicks. They were the ones who wound up with KD and Kyrie and James Harden, and now everyone wants to play for him. That's just a tip of the cap to a great organization. Buying a championship, I'm with Dr. J. It's fair and it's a compliment.
Yeah. I just don't view them as buying a championship. That's all I'm trying to say. Because when you buying, it's implying that you got something else that somebody else couldn't get because you had more money than they did. And that's not the case in the NBA. Yeah. You have guys, 2 free agents, and Kyrie and KD that elected to go there. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah. It's not like the Spurs. A team like the Spurs, everyone who they win a championship with, they draft. Right? Like that, I get it. And it feels good as a fan of the team when you draft the players because it's like you get to see them come up. They're an organic part of the team and everything. But throughout sports history, there have been major trades and free agent signings, and those championships count just the same. And by the way, Philly won a championship with Dr. J. He ain't giving that back. They had to pay him a lot of money to win that championship, along with Moses Malone, who they brought in. Moses Malone was the best. Apologies to Bird and Magic and Kareem, but back then, for a couple of years, Moses Malone was the best player in the NBA. He wasn't drafted by the Sixers, and Dr. J won a championship with him.
You know who almost had a championship? That would be the Atlanta Falcons. We don't talk about Atlanta enough, gentlemen, and that's what we are going to do next on this program. The Atlanta Falcons, one of the most